All right, welcome back to Overtime Arcade. I'm Charlie, and today's episode is an exciting one because today marks the beginning of an all-new restoration project. Now, if you've been following this channel, you know that we've been working to restore an original Miss Pac-Man cabinet out in the garage. We've been making really great progress. All of the electronics are fully working, and we're sort of nearing the final stretch of that project. All that's really left to do is cosmetic work to the cabinet. We've got some Bondo work we need to do. We've got to repaint all the original stenciled artwork. And I'm really looking forward to that, but it's now the cold time of year and I don't want to be doing all of that painting and everything when it's 30 degrees outside. So we're going to put that project on mothballs until the spring, and we're going to turn our attention to a new restoration project. Also, if you saw one of our most recent videos, you know that we recently pulled out a game from the lineup. So we had a class of 1981 combination Miss Pac-Man and Galaga machine down here in the lineup, and we pulled that out, brought it to my office at work, and that's going to stay there for a while. So it really seems weird to me to have a gap in the lineup over here, and I actually moved the centipede over to the left so that it doesn't look like a smile missing teeth. So hopefully we'll get this next project done and kind of leapfrog it past Miss Pac-Man and bring it down here into the garage in the coming weeks or months. This restoration project is also going to be a ton of work. We've got a ton of electronics work to do. We've got some cabinet work to do. That cabinet, like the Miss Pac-Man, was also painted black by a previous owner or operator. So we'll strip all that off and hopefully be able to preserve the original stenciled artwork under all that black paint. And one additional step that we're going to have to do with this project is deconvert it. So it is an original early 1980s game manufactured by Williams, and it had been converted to a late 80s game by SNK. And what a conversion means is you take an arcade cabinet like any of the ones you see here and change what game it is. So you'll pull out the game PCB, replace it with a new one, probably change the control panel, change all the artwork, and you've basically transformed one cabinet into another, which was a really common thing to do, back in the day when the original game stopped earning and the arcade owner or operator wanted to breathe some new life into that machine. But often the games that those originals were converted into are a lot less desirable by collectors. They're a lot less, well-loved than these original games. So we're going to be deconverting that game back to what it was originally. So if that sounds fun, let's go!
Overtime!
Okay, here it is. Here's what we're going to be spending the next couple of months of our lives working on. Think of this as the before picture, and hopefully by the end of this project we'll have something very impressive to compare it with. So obviously this is a Williams cabinet that's been converted to an SNK game called Street Smart, and the Marquee here has a copyright date of 1989. I am 99% sure that this was originally a Joust, which came out in 1982. It's got the correct sort of cabinet silhouette for Joust, but Joust shared the same silhouette with Moon Patrol. The difference being Moon Patrol was a narrower cabinet, and this is the wider width Williams cabinet, so that tells me it's probably a Joust. When I picked this up, obviously the sides have been painted black and they had this decal, side art decal for Street Smart on it. And I saw this red poking through, this sort of reddish brown, brownish red color poking through, and I thought, well, maybe that's the Joust side art. But the more I look at this, and we can show you the other side as well, the more I look at this, the more I think that this cabinet was actually painted twice. It could have been painted a red first, like a maroon, sort of brownish red, a wine color red, and then painted again black. So perhaps this game was converted twice, which again is not unheard of. So kind of taking a glance at everything as a whole, the cabinet's in, relatively decent shape. We've got a bit of, chipping and splitting at the bottom, but, no major water damage or anything like that. I noticed when I loaded this into my truck that the leg levelers have been completely removed, so it's sitting on the wood. So that's something we'll want to address sooner rather than later to prevent, further damage to the cabinet. The speaker grill has been punched in, which is a very common thing on these Williams cabinets. These speaker grills are really just, plastic, and somebody's actually punched through the speaker as well. So we'll need to fix both of those things. Obviously all the artwork's been converted. Somebody added probably a credit switch to the front of that. I bought this cabinet out of somebody's home. It was, for sale for a great price on Facebook Marketplace. It is working. I've seen it working. They had it plugged in when I picked it up, turned it on, and the screen was really dim, but the game was playing. You were able to control it. I was not very happy with how the wiring looked, so I disconnected it, pulled the switching power supply out of it. So it's not currently working right now. But if somebody's interested in buying this Street Smart PCB, Marquee and bezel, I'd be happy to let it go for a very, very nice price. Looking at the control panel, obviously, if you think about the original Joust layout, right, there were two joysticks because Joust features simultaneous two-player play. There were start buttons, two start buttons at the top, and each player only had one button to kind of flap the wings of the ostrich or stork or whatever they were flying. So obviously there have been more speaker holes added to the control panel and additional sort of, holes for these carriage bolts kind of holding everything in place, and we've got this piece of plexi on it. I'm hoping that I can patch that up. We'll strip everything off. We'll take off this control panel overlay. We'll certainly have to install a new control panel overlay, and I got one from this old game that I'm going to use. But I'm hoping to be able to reuse the control panel itself, fill in the new holes. Hopefully the old ones are still there, and hopefully it's not too much like Swiss cheese. Fortunately, they only added 4 new button holes and not 5 on each side for like a Street Fighter conversion or something like that. A couple things I also noticed, this is missing the, I guess you would call it, control panel bracket or spacer thing that sort of it sandwiches in between the control panel and the bezel on Williams cabinets, but there are reproductions available for that for really cheap. The other thing I noticed is that there's a bit of a gap, if you can see, between the end of the control panel and the cabinet, and it's the same on both sides. And if I bring out the measuring tape, I think the cabinet has sort of been pulled apart a little bit. Not like a water damage thing where, sometimes you'll have cabinets that get moisture in them and then the particle board or the plywood even will crack and split and swell. That's not the case. But if you measure the width of the cabinet at the bottom, I think it's right dead on 26 inches. And if you measure it, and it's the same up here, up by the Marquee, 26 inches across. But if you measure it here at the control panel, it's at least 1/4 of an inch, if not half an inch wider. So I think somebody might have, been trying to, pull the machine by grabbing onto it here and dragging it around, which may have sort of, separated the cabinet a little bit. So we'll have to figure out what to do there. At first I was thinking maybe they put a smaller control panel on, but no, measuring the cabinet, I think it's just been pulled apart a little bit. So I don't know if we can clamp that together, secure it together somehow, sort of squeeze it back into place, but we'll figure that out. Monitor doesn't look too bad. It's got a little bit of burn in, which you can't even quite see on camera. And I think it's Street Smart burn, because it has, I don't know, it doesn't look consistent with like the, it doesn't have like the Joust logo in the middle, like the Joust sort of attract mode screen. Obviously we're missing locks here, but that's normal. And the wiring inside here is a mess. So it's been wired for JAMMA. I think the original harness was completely removed, and they've got a really janky JAMMA wiring setup here. We do have, down in the cash box, we do have the coin box, so that's all fine. I think we're in good shape there. So that'll restore nicely. This coin door is in better shape even than my Robotron downstairs. Yeah, let's go and look at the back. Let me grab my screwdriver. And we'll come around here. Whoop. Come on, gimbal. Sometimes this thing has a mind of its own and doesn't quite realize where I'm trying to go or what I'm trying to look at. Come on, track on back. Here we go. So Williams cabinets from this era, from the sort of classic era, have a really interesting backdoor design. So most games, you know, like this Pac-Man or whatever, just have a single piece backdoor that you know, comes right off, or maybe it's on a like hinges, you know, it's on a hinge like a door. But these Williams cabinets have two pieces. So this top part sort of lifts up and pulls out, and this back part, and this is sort of what the, you know, what's behind the monitor. And this back part is on a hinge that swings open. So it's like a combination of two different kinds of back doors. When I was picking up this cabinet, the owners, the sellers didn't have a key for this lock. And I was thinking that I was going to have to drill it out, because I did transport the cabinet. I pulled the monitor out, put the monitor in the cabin of my pickup truck, and the cabinet I put into the bed of the truck. I was thinking that I was going to have to drill out the lock in order to get the back door off and get the monitor off. But then I saw these two screws in the corner, and I thought, well, maybe these two screws are actually what's holding the cabinet door in place, the back door in place. And sure enough, that was the case. So, you know, this lock is still there, but the latch on the lock that holds the door in place is missing. So you can just come in here and pull the door right off. Originally, this upper part of the back door had a sort of instruction sheet, like a schematic sort of wiring diagram with some adjustment instructions, but that's obviously been removed, and all that's left there is a bunch of dust. So we've got that part off. And this lower back door has two latches, and I can show you that. It's got these two latches inside, if the camera will cooperate. And now I'm causing a shadow. So there's one latch right here that goes like that, and there's another one just a few inches below that. And then the lower back door just swings open on hinges. And so we'll take a look at what's going on here. Obviously, this is a JAMMA PCB for that SNK Street Smart game. It's got the SNK logo right here and a JAMMA edge connector. And you can see what this harness looks like, sort of just a mess of wires kind of running all over. And like I said, it did work. The original Williams Joust boards was a 5-board setup. So on the lower back door, you had a metal plate which has been removed, and you had the main PCB called the MCU. You had the ROM board with the actual game code on it, and then you had a widget board sort of controlling the interfaces in the game. And then on a second metal plate, which is still in the cabinet, you have the soundboard up top and the power supply PCB down below. All of those boards have been missing, but I have been able to source new ones, partially working, that we'll have to get fully working. And the power setup in here is kind of crazy. So originally there was a sort of transformer assembly in the bottom of the cabinet with a isolation transformer and all that sort of stuff. That original Williams one has been removed. In its place, there looks like this sort of homemade setup. It resembles what you might see on a test bench setup for someone who wants to bench test monitors or PCBs, or really monitors for the isolation transformer. So we'll put that out. And I have, again, sourced an original Williams transformer assembly that we'll get back into working shape. And you see this sort of newer switching power supply. And there was actually two, both of them wired up when I got this cabinet. And I think it's that blue one on the shelf over there is what I found in here. And yeah, that was a mess. So I think it was getting some voltages from one of the switching power supplies and other voltages from the other. You can see some of the wires, and it was sort of loose, just hanging out in the cabinet, so I didn't want that banging around. So I pulled it out. And let's actually go take a look at this, this power supply. There might be some more clues as to this. So if we're looking at what's going on here, it says there's a label here from an operator. Apparently this board/part is good ST. I don't know if that's someone's initials. It says it came out of Karnov. Parts needed, if any, 12 volts may be bad, belongs to DS. So, yeah, maybe this cabinet had first been converted to Karnov and then later to Street Smart. I'll have to take a look at what the Karnov side art looked like. Maybe that color is consistent with that. But yeah, so power's a mess. Wiring harness is a mess. I've ordered a new reproduction wiring harness from Golden Age Arcade Parts. Monitor up here is a Wells Gardner 4900. We can sort of see on this label here, right there in red, it says model number 19K4901. It was working. Obviously, it's a filthy, filthy beast, so we'll get this cleaned up before we work on it. You know, original cap, so I'll do a cap kit at minimum, and we'll see if there's anything else going on that needs to be you know, addressed to get this monitor backing work in order. And it's also been disconnected. You know, the video cable is down there somewhere, and I disconnected the grounding strap because, like I said, I transported this game with the monitor out of it. So yeah, why don't we start taking this apart and you know, seeing what we've got. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull that monitor back out and put it onto the workbench. You know, when I transported the monitor out, or transported the cabinet with the monitor separate, I did put the monitor back into the cabinet sort of for safekeeping when I got back to the house. And so a couple cool things. One, I really like 4900s. I've got one of my Robotron, nice and easy to work on, nice picture, just a nice monitor all around. One of the things I like about how Williams cabinets mount these monitors is they're on this sort of wooden board, right? So the frame of the monitor is mounted onto this wooden board, which sits on the shelf, and the monitor can slide nice and easy in and out. And actually, I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera, inside here, there is a little mirror, and it has a label that says view screen and mirror while adjusting monitor. So you can slide this monitor out a couple of inches and throw a bolt in down here to keep the cabinet or the monitor from sliding completely out. Throw a bolt in there, and then you can use this monitor to be able to see, or this mirror right there, to be able to see what's on the screen as you're making adjustments in the back, which makes it nice because, you know, that way you don't have to pull the monitor completely out of the cabinet, so that you can kind of, you know, look around the corner to look at the monitor while you're adjusting things, or set up some kind of you know, mirror of your own or whatever, which I've done frequently. It just makes it nice and convenient. So yeah, let me grab a couple, or a socket of the right size, and we'll be able to remove that monitor. All right, so I've got a 7/16 socket here, and I don't even need my socket wrench because it's only hand tight in here on both sides when I put the monitor back, probably because I knew that I just needed to kind of hold it there in place. So I'll pull these two bolts out that hold the monitor board onto the monitor shelf. So there's one, and here's the other. You know, like I said, obviously the power's been disconnected for the monitor, and the video signal has been disconnected, and the grounding strap has been disconnected. I kind of want to tuck that out of the way so it doesn't get caught up on anything. So we'll take these two bolts, put them off to the side for safekeeping. Don't want to lose these. All right. And now we should be able to just slide the monitor out on the shelf. There we go. Look at that. Look how easy that is. Just make sure I don't get hung up on any of these other sort of janky wires. And, you know, we'll obviously want to be careful of the neck. We don't want to bump the neck board and crack the neck and release the vacuum in the tube. So pull that right out. Put it over here on the workbench. Okay, filthy, 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 but yeah, looks like it's in decent shape overall. Okay, what's next? What else should we do, huh? Why don't we pull this PCB out, because we don't need this. Grab my screwdriver. So yeah, I doubt I'll be holding on to this Street Smart PCB. I don't think this is a particularly well-regarded game. You know, SNK made some good games, but I don't think this is one that is people really care about. But if you're looking for one of these, hey, let me know. Happy to cut you a good deal. Let's see, we've got these sort of spacers that I should be able to take right off. Okay. My pile of screws down here. It's like, it's got these sort of PCB spacer feet, sort of keeping the circuit board itself from being in contact with the back door. All right, there's that. So yeah, here's our working SNK Street Smart PCB. Look at all those ICs on the board. And it's got, you know, SNK logos on it, so I have no reason to believe that it's not an authentic board. But yeah, if anyone's interested in this, I'd be happy to post a quick video. I'll plug this into a working JAMMA setup and show you the game running if you're interested. Okay. What next? Let's look at all this mess in here. All right, so yeah, they ran, or maybe tied into some of the existing wiring for the Marquee light and speakers. And then down here, looks like somebody spilt maybe grape soda at some point. I don't know. Oh my gosh, what's going on here? All right, let me look at this. So I think this might be part of the original power cord, and they've sort of reused it to connect the transformer over there with the switcher over here, and then here's a new power cord to go to the wall. And this thing is it's on the single bolts, just kind of sliding around. I don't even know how I'm gonna. Is that like a? I don't know what I'm gonna do. Let me figure this out. Okay, I'm going to come in here and disconnect this second switching power supply. And they just have these screws in here holding the wiring in place. Definitely a hack job. Yeah, they just stripped the ends of this power cord and wired it in. And then this thing here, like, they're not even, yeah, it's not even looped, right? So you would think that you'd either crimp, you know, spade terminals on the end of these wires, or if nothing else, you just make a loop with the wire. But these are kind of just lined up in there and then screwed down, so, you know, not exactly a secure connection. All right, and I think this is held on at the bottom. You take a look. Yeah, there's a screw at the bottom. Sorry if I'm in the way. All right. And then up here. Okay. So here's another junk power supply. What does it say on it? Oh, look at that. Phoenix. This came out of a Phoenix. And obviously this is not a... was Phoenix made by Centuri? I'm sure Centuri had a linear power supply and not a switcher in that. So Man, this cabinet was sort of cobbled together. Okay, let's see. I kind of want to just take all this crap out of here. Why don't we do that? Let me grab a cup to hold all these little screws and stuff, since we'll want to reuse them. So I think these are, you know, the original sort of cable ties that were in the Williams cabinet that held the original harness in place. And this is definitely not, or as far as I can tell, not the original harness. You know, sometimes operators, when they were converting a cabinet, would take the original harness and just completely hack it up and rewire it for JAMMA. I don't think that's what they did here. At least I don't think so. I think this is a separate JAMMA harness that was installed in this cabinet at some point. Okay, is that speaker wire maybe? Maybe. And it's just a mess. Let me actually, let's see. Pull that here. Can you see what I'm doing? Let's take a look. Is that a better view on what's going on in here? Let me come around to the front, and the control panel is held on with some brackets as well. And usually you can reach through the coin door, but I can just come around from the back and undo these. All right. So there isn't even like a Molex connector or a disconnect for this control panel, which is another reason I don't think it's the original. So we see the wiring straight to the buttons here. And then there's some kind of glue or something, some silicone glue, or is this like caulk? Like caulking that's holding this in here? Look at this stuff. I have no idea what that is. I feel like it's some kind of caulking. You know, I think I'm going to cut all these buttons off. Like I'll cut the wire right by the soldering connection just so I can take these buttons off. I'll do the same thing with the joysticks. I don't know if I'll ever reuse these, but we'll do that. And then we should be able to pull the harness, as I think the control panel wiring is mostly what's keeping everything in place here. So let me get set up to show you that. Okay, so like I said, I'm just going to come in here and cut these wires. Let me do all of these. Okay, so we've got the control panel wiring completely disconnected. These are all just some loose odds and ends. And so now we'll be able to pull hopefully, the harness out of the cabinet. But I've got to go drop off one of my kids at his friend's house, so let me do that and I'll come right back. Okay, we're back. So now that we disconnected the control panel, we should be able to get the rest of this wiring harness pulled out relatively easily. I've got some coin door connections to remove. Oh my gosh, it's the same. A lot of splicing here. Well, one's on a spade connector, is it? Is that? Yeah, okay, come on off. All right, it doesn't want to budge, so we'll cut them loose, I guess. So if you can see me, if you can see what I'm doing, I'm just cutting these coin bulb and coin switch. Where does this even go? Like daisy chained together. All right. All right, that's free. All right, so Control panel disconnected. Coin door disconnected. What left? What is left? I'm just relatching the coin door chain, or the control panel chain that keeps it from flopping around. So let's see, where does that go? That goes up there. Does this have any kind of disconnect to it? No, of course not. Let's see. Is that part of the original wiring? That's been cut. Oh, wonderful. There's a connector up here. Let's see. A connector for the Marquee. All right. And we've got some wire nuts for, oh, this is the main power switch. Yeah, the speakers are on the other side. Okay, that's free. Just disconnecting the harness from these cable ties. All right. What's left? This is the speaker wire, and this is on a connector. They must have just spliced into this. Come on. It's like a Molex connector that I'm trying to disconnect. There we go. What else? We've got this. Oh, the credit button needs to be cut off. Let's see if I can do that. Yeah. That should be everything for the wiring harness. Yeah, look at all that coming out now. Okay, and the only thing still connected is this homemade transformer assembly, and there's a single bolt holding it on that's just hand tight. All right, all that out of here. And the bolt fell into the coin box. All right, let's take a look inside now. Nice and empty. This will be a good spot to build from. What do I see in here? There's a spring back there in the corner, I think from a joystick, if you can see that. We got on this side, nothing. I don't see anything underneath the cash box. Got a quarter, 2 quarters. What else? I need a flashlight. There's a screw, some electrical tape. It's always interesting to see if you can find anything cool at the bottom of a game. This is the date on this. 96. And how about this one? This one looks older. 87 is the date on that one. So probably nothing that was used to play Joust, most likely. What else we got? A screw. Don't want that banging around, but yeah, I mean, it's, let me grab that. Spring. Yeah, joystick spring. While we're at it. Here we go. But yeah, nothing too interesting going on inside here. It's dirty. It needs to be cleaned for sure. But what do we see here? It's just for the fuses. There's a sticker over here where the soundboard would have been. It says, soundboard of this game must be jumpered for green label sound ROM, W3 connected and W2 removed. to use this board in games with white label sound ROMs, remove W3 and connect W2. So did Joust use the green label sound ROM? I wonder. All right, we do have the plastic sort of monitor shroud, which is great. One less thing we have to find. Nothing too interesting going on up there. So yeah, this is our completely gutted cabinet that we'll be working from. And here you see that, operator made, homemade transformer assembly with a interlock switch on it. For some reason, that wouldn't have even made contact with a back door back in the day. So let's come around. Let's finish. Let's see what we're going to do with this control panel. All right, Williams cabinets of this era had this nice sort of hinged wooden control panel that's mounted on both sides with this hinge setup. So I'm going to remove these 5 bolts so that we can take the control panel completely off of the cabinet. So let me do that. All right, that last bolt gave me some trouble, but it's now free. Yeah, okay. Yeah, here we go. Here's our control panel. Let's set this up on the workbench to take a closer look. The player 2 start button kind of fell off by itself. Oh no, get a screwdriver or something to take this caulking or whatever it is off. I don't know if this was meant to kind of help the buttons stay in place if they were being used vigorously, but just making my life more difficult now, decades later. All right, let's see. And these, I think, are the original 2 buttonholes for the start buttons. Yeah, why don't I go and take the rest of these buttons off. So I was having trouble getting one of these buttons off, and the switch, I pulled on the switch and it just totally came apart in my hands, which is fine. I'm never going to use these crummy micro switches. And there's another part of the contact from inside. These games originally, or the Williams games and most games of this era originally had leaf switches. I think there's some Nintendo games that had micro, like cherry switch type of stuff. All right, let's save that for a minute. Come back to the rest of these buttons. Got all the buttons off. Now I gotta get these joysticks, which they put the caulking right on the threads of the bolts here, so this might be a pain. Okay, so there's our control panel with all the controls removed. All those bolts were just on hand tight, not even hand tight. I could just finger tight. And some of them were just gummed up with that silicone caulking or whatever that was. I'm just getting these bolts out of the way. See what we're really dealing with here. This one doesn't want to budge. There we go. A couple more over here. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So let me see. So again, I think these are the two original start buttons, and one of these, maybe this one and this one, are the original buttonholes for the flat button. It's hard to say, I'll have to take a closer look, but I don't like the looks of these joystick holes. So originally, Joust did not have a four-way joystick, so it wouldn't have been a round hole like that. It was just a side-to-side two-way joystick, so you wouldn't be able to go in all different directions. It would just go side to side. So this hole has been expanded, unless there were, and I've never seen one. I'd have to research it and find some pictures. There were some early Joust cabinets that apparently had optical joysticks, and I don't know if what the hole size looked like for that. And I don't think this is an early run Joust, because I've seen some other dates like this. It says inspected, tested February 18th, 1983. And Joust was originally released in 1982, so this is not a early run Joust. Let's see. I kind of want to see what's underneath all of this. So let me undo this lower set of bolts here. All right, so we've got the hinge completely off. It's filthy. We'll have to clean that. So if you remember, see right here, we've got this plexi sort of on top of the control panel overlay. So let's take these bolts off. I know how exciting this is, removing bolts, but you know, it's all part of the process. Now that plexi fell right off. We'll put that to the side. And so, got a lot of parts here, some of which I do want to keep, but let's take a look at what's underneath this older Street Smart control panel overlay. So I'm just going to pull it right off and see if we can find anything. Yeah, it's just coming apart. But if you see, it's bare wood underneath, and there isn't, as far as I can tell, another control panel overlay underneath this Street Smart one. So I'm guessing that as part of the conversion, they must have ripped the old one off. But yeah, that's our starting point for the control panel. Yeah, this is just going to come off. I might need to use some heat to take this thing off completely. But, okay. Like I said, we'll figure out this button layout, what we need to do to bring this back to a Joust, assuming this is a Joust. And like I said, I'm 99% sure that it is. But, yeah, what are these? Oh, those are just the brackets holding it on. Okay. So, I think that'll about wrap it up for this initial overview episode. Call it part one of the Joust restoration. We kind of just, took a look at what we're working with here. Monitor's filthy but serviceable. We'll bring that back to life. I have seen this monitor working, but needs a little bit of work. Here's the SNK Street Smart PCB, if anyone's interested in that. Our control panel that we'll have to completely redo. We're going to fill these holes. The extra holes here, we will fill them with dowels and Bondo and sand that all down to cover that up. And then we'll figure out what we need to do to put the right size and shape holes for the two-way Joust joysticks, but that'll be fun. And yeah, here's the cabinet. Our starting point is here. Pretty much stripped. Oh, you know, I wanted to do one more thing. I want to pull this Street Smart art off. We can do that real quick. All right. We'll pull the bezel off and the marquee. So the bezel just lifts out of its little slot right here. And yeah, the original Williams ones were painted glass, or I don't know if painted silk screen maybe is the correct process. It was just silk screened on, silk screen printed on the inside of the glass, the back side of the glass, you know, with a background and instructions and what have you, with a little instruction card taped on. So this is a two-piece bezel, just a clear piece of glass and this cardboard foldable bezel, which, you know, has been cut down to fit the Williams cabinet. Like the tops of these characters' heads have been cut off. In the bottom, you can sort of see where it was covered up. The fading sort of stops right here. This obviously all was originally red and not this sort of very light pinkish orange. So that's available if anyone wants it. Monitor shroud looks okay. And we've got just 2 of the 4 screws up here holding the bezel or the marquee retaining bracket. We'll pop these off real quick. Okay, don't want to lose that. And let's see what this is. Okay, so this is, I guess, an actual screened marquee. It's not a 2-piece, so it's printed on this side. That's fine. It's obviously sun faded too, but hey. And let's just take a look at what's back here, because this isn't right. Like I mentioned, this speaker has been punched in. So this, we can see the remnants of the original fluorescent bulb that ran the marquee light. And I guess this is a spot for the starter right there. And it's just been replaced with a little regular light bulb outlet. So we'll try to bring this back, and all the wiring's been cut, obviously, so we'll see what we can do there. But yeah, here's our starting point on the cabinet. Basically stripped down to nothing. I'll pull this button out. But yeah, we got a mess of hacked up JAMMA harness here. And yeah, an empty cabinet. It is our canvas for our restoration project. So in the next upcoming episodes, what are we going to do? We'll pull that transformer assembly that I bought separately, not this sort of, you know, hacked up one or homemade operator made one, but I do have an original Williams power supply for this. We will get that working at some point. We'll figure out what to do with this control panel, sort of get that put back together. I want to see what's hiding underneath all this paint. There might be multiple layers here, so this black paint is obviously covering stuff up. And I don't know what's going on with this sort of reddish brown paint. I don't think this is original, because this was, you know, the sort of background color of the Joust stencil is brown. There is some red that's sort of like this, but it's not the sort of background color. So we'll strip this off and see if maybe there's some Joust art to recover underneath. And yeah, we got a lot of work ahead of us. But should be fun over the next couple of months. So I think we'll wrap it up right here. That was part 1 of the Joust restoration, part 1 of many. Hope you're excited to see how things turn out throughout the process. So stay tuned for that. As always, thanks for watching. I'm Charlie, and I'll see you next time.
Overtime!